The story I wanted to tell today is the story of my apocalypse. The process started about what, 2-3 years ago. For about 25 years, I had considered myself a Taoist. Taoism was the go-to spiritual discipline that I used for these matters. And I was starting to realize that it's not what I am anymore. It's not what I do anymore. I still very much, enjoy Taoism and all it has to offer, but I was becoming aware I was moving in another direction, towards another place. And I tried to figure out what that direction was, and figure out, where is it I'm going. And I came to not a conclusion, but I came to call what I'm doing now agnostic mysticism. So it's agnostic because it acknowledges the limits of human knowledge, and that much of the things that we believe to be true are actually very weak hypotheses, and that everything that is linked to the spiritual dimension is actually entirely outside of the purview of reason, for reasons that people like Kurt Gödel describe. But at the same time, you have the mysticism aspect, because you have to acknowledge that the spiritual experience is very important to humans. It's a critical element of their lives. The most meaningful experiences a person can have are experiences in the spiritual domain. And there's people like Alain de Botton who have gone into a lot of detail into the things that religious institutions used to do that turned out to be useful. I came to the thought of this agnostic mysticism thing, and it got me to thinking about the nature of what faith is and how it's different from knowledge. And that brought me to the realization that we had very low awareness and discipline about differentiating things that qualify as knowledge and things that are useful as faith. This is one of the things that puts us into the most trouble. But then it's an interesting thought process, and I was enjoying it. And one of the things I find interesting is trying to figure out what the more apparently crazy things in different spiritual disciplines actually might mean. How were they originally reasonable? And about a year ago, my thought turned to the first commandment of Judeo-Christian mythology, which is, and rightly so, one of the more reviled pieces of scripture in that text. It's the thing that was most misused in the most egregiously harmful way. And I start wondering, what does it mean? Why would they put this first as if it were extremely important? And then it hit me in that unpleasant way. Certain ideas end up hitting you, that there is an importance to being disciplined with one's faith, because faith is actually an extremely powerful tool, but you're being lied to about what it's powerful for, what it's powerful at. You listen to religious people, you listen to the secret love attraction types, and they keep telling you that faith can affect physical reality, because there's 3 layers of experience of reality. There's inner experience, all of the sensations, thoughts, feelings, emotions, etc., that come from inside. You have physical reality, which is made out of, the physical reality we presume is there because of consistency of experience. And then there's the social reality, the social experience dimension. And the one thing faith doesn't affect, or affects very little and in very weird and hard to understand way, is actually the physical experience, the physical reality experience. You can affect your inner experience and the social experience through faith. But the most important aspect is how it affects the social experience. Because we interact with others through, at the minimum, we interact with them through an ethos. And an ethos is a faith-created thing. Morals, ethics, they are all fabricated. They're not natural. You do not see any human ethics being played out in nature. We invent these things because we, at some point, figure out that they make our lives better. And faith-created things is that they become real in the mind. That's how faith works. It's something that you do not have, that it's a piece of information that does not meet the criteria for knowledge, but that you decide to make real. Ethos as the foundation, doxa as the ways we imagine the preferred outcomes of our ethos come from. And then finally the praxis, which is how we use the doxa to manifest the ethos, basically. So it all starts with an act of faith. Even logic has to start with an act of faith. You have to adopt postulates, you have to adopt axioms, and these do not qualify as knowledge. They are acts of faith that you make to believe in these axioms. And where my mind was taken next was that all of our institutions, governments, corporations, NGOs, religions, clubs, whatever you can imagine as a fixed structure through which we interact with each other, all of these are religions by default. They don't have a choice, because at the very minimum, we believe in an ethos for them. And this is an act of faith. Where it gets more interesting and more dangerous is that there are institutions that have very unique properties. And I tried to figure out what caused these unique properties. You have institutions with a stronger history of harming than of helping, like governments and corporations, and even religions, but at least religions admit that they're religions. Governments and corporations work very hard at making you think that they're not, that they are something better, something more. And then I tried to figure out, what are the characteristics that make institutions behave that way? And I figure out that there's two ideas that I call the two unholy ideas, and that you should too. And these two ideas are, first, there is justification for violence outside of the strictest definition of self-defense. The second one is you can declare law upon the unwilling. Now, for an institution to be able to have these ideas, it has to be external to the individual. You can't believe these two ideas and believe that they are a power that comes from you, because by definition, you are creating a framework in which the person who manifests this power is distinct from other humans. It doesn't work if everyone can declare law on anyone else, right? Somebody's got to be able to declare law on others, while others aren't able to declare law on them for that notion to function. So when you accept that an institution can use violence outside of the strictest definition of self-defense, and that it can impose law upon the unwilling, what you're really saying is that this institution is an entity external to you, external to all humans, that is real and that has powers that humans don't, right? So a judge doesn't have the powers of a judge because as a human he has these powers. A police officer doesn't have the powers of a police officer because he inherently, as a human, has these powers. They have these powers because they allow themselves to be possessed by the external entity. What kind of entity acts through possession and influence only? What kind of entity has a habit of harming the people who call upon it for help? What, in traditional cultures, what kind of entity has these properties? What kind of entity has the habit of giving people exactly what they asked for while giving them absolutely nothing of what they wanted? What kind of entity requires rituals to be summoned? What kind of entity requires human sacrifices to grow in power, and sacrifices of various types? They don't even hide it. They say it to your face. You have to make sacrifices. If you want to start a business, you have to put your health and your sanity on that funeral pyre and set it on fire. You have to sacrifice your health and sanity to the demon you're invoking in order to make it powerful enough to make you money. And when you understand that, then all of a sudden, the end of Cloverfield Paradox becomes a representation of the world you live in. It is a world entirely overtaken and controlled by monsters, by demons. Because these things look so much like how we have culturally described demons throughout history that you have to wonder, were stories about demons always about institutions? Is the first commandment about your responsibility to exert your faith in a way that is congruent with your ethos, with what you believe to be right and wrong? And if you do control your faith in such a disciplined way, you are placed before the obligation of removing your faith from all of these institutions. It's not a question of the government is bad and I'm going to ignore it. Corporations are bad and I'm going to ignore them. It's a question of these entities are either demons manifesting through humans or an aggregation of insane people acting in destructive ways. And the way you kill demons is by looking at the people possessed by them as if they were insane. Because they are. Because demons aren't real. Unless you make them real through your faith. Are you following me on this? Because this is important. This is how we get out of this mess. Until we accept the necessity of being disciplined with our faith, we are going to see the same patterns over and over and over and over and over again. And history is just going to be a stupid loop of stupid actions by stupid people. If you really work at destroying, really hunting down and murdering every sign of these demons within yourself, within your faith, a world of possibilities is revealed to you, and it will make you even more horrified than the initial realization that among all the things that are possible, we are choosing to live like this. There's a reason, if aliens exist, there's a reason they don't contact us. We are people who still think there's ideas worth hurting people over. How batshit crazy is that? Until we renounce the two unholy ideas, until we renounce the very notion that ideas exist that are worth hurting people for, we will be stuck here. We will be stuck in this treadmill, on this hamster wheel of always the same thing, but a little bit worse each time. Anyway, I thought that would entertain you. Tomorrow I might talk about what I see us needing to do to get out of this problem. Let's see.